Welcome back to another episode of Wiltfong's Whiparound. I'm your host, Steve Wiltfong. It's Tuesday, June 12th. Big thanks to Chris and Jason in the studio in Nashville at the 24/7 Sports headquarters, producing the show. As always, appreciate Trey Scott and his creative influence. We're coming off another massive recruiting weekend as young men across the country try and iron out their college football plans and get those in order before they go into their senior seasons. And college coaches love it too. The more players they can get in the boat going into fall camp, the better for them. And Ohio State, they are now the number one ranked. They now have the number one ranked recruiting class in the country. They beat Notre Dame for top 247 defensive lineman Jason Moore out of Hyattsville, DeMatha, and that recruiting win propelled them past the Irish. They've had a little bit of a back and forth there at the top of the standings, but Ohio State sitting at number one. They also landed offensive lineman Miles Walker, a highly recruited player from the state of Connecticut. The Buckeyes offensive line class coming together. They have four in the fold, including Luke Montgomery. But Jason Moore, 6'6", 265 pounds from the same high school that produced Chase Young, very athletic player, standout on the hardwood, a kid that we originally ranked in our top 100 when we first ranked this class going into their sophomore season. Been a touted guy. Ohio State gets it done with the visit in the spring and an official visit in the summer when Notre Dame was considered the favorite for much of the process. Tennessee, they're in the top five. Shandavian Bradley, five-star defensive end, was the big recruiting win for the Vols over the weekend. A young man that can run. Another basketball player similar to Jason Moore, maybe not there physically, but 6'5", 220 pounds, one of the fastest players in the country coming off the edge. Terrific upside there. You guys have heard me talk about it a lot. Tennessee, we know their offense is going to be terrific with Coach Heupel and company. They were number 9 in total yards, number 7 in scoring offense last year in their first season. Tell me how they're going to recruit on defense. They've recruited a lot of pass rushers. Shandavian Bradley, the latest to join the fold. They also landed one of their top offensive line targets, Shamarad Umarov, and went out there and got linebacker Jalen Smith out of the Peach State. He had like 170 tackles last year. Again, love the way it's come together on defense for the Vols. They're rocking and rolling. LSU, they're currently number 7. We're waiting on some breaking news from top 247 linebacker Raul Popo Aguirre that could maybe change that if he goes to Miami. Miami's sitting at number 10. LSU, they're at number 7. We're going to talk a little bit about them more later as they just landed touted running back Caleb Jackson to go with the big recruiting weekend that included Jaylen Brown, a 5-star receiver who picked LSU, and Whit Weeks, who's a terrific linebacker from the state of Georgia. Georgia, their linebacker recruiting is insane. Guys that they're not recruiting, a guy like Whit Weeks, who had 134 tackles last year, and his dad played at Georgia, a hard-nosed, tone-setting type of football player. Georgia, it just goes to show you how insane their linebacker class is going to be when they don't have a spot for a terrific player like Whit Weeks, who now they're going to potentially have to play against. He's going to be a menace in Baton Rouge. Miami, like I said, they're in the top 10. They landed Jaden Wayne over the weekend, top 247 edge rusher from Washington State, who's going to play at IMG Academy. No program, going harder from top to bottom on the recruiting trail than the Hurricanes. They're in on so many more elite targets. Samson Okunlola, Ola Salinen on the offensive line. Top 247 linebacker Malik Bryant. He's a physical football player that brings that pass rush presence from the second level. They're in a good spot there. Always been in a great spot for edge rusher Ruben Bain. I like them for 4-star safety Jaden Bonzu over Ohio State. Several more. It seems like they're recruiting against Alabama a lot right now. So anytime you're going toe-to-toe with the Crimson Tide, like they are for 5-star cornerback Cormani McClain, like they are for Okunlola and Ola Salinen, going against the Buckeyes for Jaden Bonsu. They're in the right battles. They're winning a lot of them. It's been exciting to watch the Hurricanes, and we'll see if Popo Aguirre picks Miami here while we're on this broadcast. Let's talk about someone who did make a decision earlier today, and that is running back Caleb Jackson. He's one of the jewels of this LSU class that's ranked number 7 nationally. 9 of LSU's 15 commits have come this month here in July as Brian Kelly and this new staff have really heated up. And Caleb Jackson, he averaged over 15 yards per carry, man. He's a blur on tape, sub-11 speed in the 100-meter dash. He's an angle eraser, one jab step, bounce it outside, beats everyone in the corner. He's gone. You know, he can make people miss in the second level. Rushed for rushed for 2,031 yards and 29 touchdowns as a junior, can also catch the football. He's the second running back commit in this class for LSU as they try and add some potent playmakers. They also have Trey Holly from in-state in the fold. Trey Holly rushed for over 2,600 yards and 33 touchdowns as a junior. Trey Holly's got almost 8,000 yards rushing in his career. So two prolific backs in the fold for LSU. A school that we might be talking about a lot this week on the 24/7 Sports Network is Penn State, the Nittany Lions. They have the number 6 recruiting class in the country right now. James Franklin and the staff looking for their third top 10 class, I believe, since being in Happy Valley, top 10 last year. So a lot of momentum there. Easy to see why 8 more players drafted from Penn State that led the Big Ten this past April. This is a program, again, James Franklin, he's been to 3 New Year's Six Bowls, won a Big Ten championship. He's hungry to get back there, and they're recruiting with vigor. I think they're going to land 2 terrific defensive pieces. They already have the number 1 offensive line class in the country right now. In my opinion, they got a chance to get 2 outstanding second-level defenders. Top 247 linebacker Tony Rojas is announcing this week. He's down to Penn State. He's down to Georgia. He's down to Clemson. I prefaced earlier that Georgia, I think they're going to sign the number 1 linebacker class in the country. They have 2 already committed, 2 elite players at the position committed, C.J. Allen and then Raylan Wilson, explosive, fast players, and love where they're sit for Troy Bowles. But they would have taken Tony Rojas. They have a spot for Tony Rojas if he wants to come to Georgia. But I think he's going to Penn State. He's one of the fastest players in the country at the position. He's rangy. He's athletic. He's super quick and agile. He can cover. He's got an elite skill set. I think he's going to be the next great linebacker at linebacker U if he does indeed pick Penn State. That's the way it's trending. Would be a massive pickup for James Franklin and company. And top 247 defensive end, linebacker, safety, Tamir Robinson. He's played them all on the prep level. Probably plays outside linebacker in college. Jumped on our radar as a safety. I think he's also going to pick Penn State, also strongly considering Miami and Virginia Tech going into his decision. But you see him on one play rushing the passer, then you see him at safety dropping, going 10 yards behind him and making an interception. Just a smooth, explosive player. Those are 2 championship level type additions for Penn State if they're able to land them and bring them in as they try and scratch and claw and compete with Ohio State, Michigan, and some of the other programs at the top of the Big Ten. They've been right there. These would be 2 more massive recruiting wins. Let's pivot to something else here as we wrap up the show. Colin and Jason, Big 12 recruiting, Big 12 Media Day here. So with that, let's put a little bit of focus here on the Big 12 and hit a little of these topics. We did a little Q&A with y'all on the 24/7 Sports Twitter handle. Got some questions here. Will Austin Novosad officially sign with Baylor? Is Ohio State coming for him? The Dripping Springs star is going to be a major riser in our recruiting rankings as we update them later this month. He's coming off an outstanding Elite 11 performance. This young man's put on 15 pounds since his junior season, so he's just more powerful and more physically impressive than he was when you watch the tape. But he had a great year, threw for almost 4,000 yards. And some of the big dogs have come calling. It's not just Ohio State that's in there. Notre Dame offered this week. Says he's going to give the Irish a look. Texas A&M offered within the last 2 weeks. Both his parents went to A&M. I think he loves Baylor. He took his official there in June. He loves that coaching staff, loves the offensive coordinator, the trajectory of the program. They won the Big 12. They won a New Year's Six Bowl. But Ohio State, that's an opportunity. I think he was very close at one point to flipping to Ohio State. But continuing to have dialogue with these college coaches, this thing continues to change. Now Notre Dame's going to take their swing. A&M's in there. So we'll see what happens with Austin Novosad. That's one where I think it could still go a couple different ways. Steve Wiltfong, you watched J.J. Cole at Elite 11. How does he compare to former ISU signees Brock Purdy and Hunter Deckers? Well, I think that there's a standard that Iowa State's kind of been recruiting this quarterback position on Matt Campbell and company. And although all of these guys are built differently, it seems like each Iowa State quarterback that Matt Campbell recruits, they get bigger. Brock Purdy's not the biggest imposing guy, but Deckers is 6'3", 200-something pounds. J.J. Cole is all of 6'6". He is a massive young man and took his team to the state title game as a junior. There's not a throw on the football field he can't make. I think he's got terrific leadership ability. I think that he sees it as an opportunity to come into Iowa State, get groomed, and take over a very competitive football team when his number is called. Hunter Deckers was a guy that we ranked in the top 247. Brock Purdy came on late in his cycle, but all of these guys have been very prolific on the high school level, and I expect that to continue in college. It's Hunter's turn now in Ames, and I think J.J. Cole, when his number's called, he's going to be a terrific player for them. And I'll tell you this: I know that there were some, I know that there's some schools that wish that they pushed for him more. Now that they're missing out on some of their top targets in this class, he was a guy that programs tried to keep warm, but J.J. Cole saw everything he needed to see at Iowa State, and he's in the boat for them. But I bet you his phone's been ringing a little bit behind the scenes, like so many of these other guys. And we know not all. The top 10 quarterbacks in the country are committed. We'll see if it stays that way with the schools that they're in the boat for going into December and February. That is not a premonition on J.J. Cole, just spitballing with y'all here. Where does Kansas stand with its quarterback targets in 2023 and 2024? Well, I forgot to even look what they were up to in 2024, so I do not have that answer. But I will tell you this. I know that they're in on South Paulding quarterback Kason Wiseman from Douglasville, Georgia. He's a guy that they had on campus this summer, and so he's a prospect that they've invested a lot of time in. But a name that's kind of rising up the board for them is Harris Boyd out of Rowlett, Texas. Harris Boyd, he broke his collarbone, so played in just 2 games as a junior, but 6'2", 195 pounds. He's impressed in camps. Kansas has got him on the radar. And he's a young man that, he threw for almost 700 yards in those 2 games. He's a guy that has got some ability, and I think the Kansas staff is intrigued. The thing about Kansas is they try and build this thing up quickly. I think they took about 20 guys, 20 transfers, right? Is that right, Chris? Jason, that sounds about right. And I know they went hard on JUCOs. They were looking to get older and more mature very quickly in that 2022 class, and so I think they're looking to take a blend of that again here. But I think we got them listed for 14 transfers. I don't know if I think they may have even gotten more than that, and hit the JUCO ranks, and so we'll see what happens with Coach Lance Leipold and them. Who do you see as a player comp for Avery Johnson at the college level? Kansas State commit, the jewel of that class. Another terrific showing at the Elite 11 finals for him. Took Mays High to the state title game, over 2,000 yards passing, over 1,000 yards rushing. I see that same recipe from Malik Willis at Liberty. I think Malik Willis was a great fit for them and Coach Freeze and what they did. And I think Avery Johnson's going to be just as prolific for Coach Klein and company at Kansas State. I think that Malik Willis is a guy that's still developing. He's obviously a standout basketball player and above the rim player on the hardwood, a terrific baseball player. It'll be exciting to see what he turns into. I was talking to my colleague Chris Singletary about this, and we settled on Malik Willis. But I mean, he was throwing out names like Lamar Jackson, and Justin Fields. It's just the potential that Avery Johnson has as a dual threat quarterback. But we settled in on Malik Willis is pretty damn good as well. OU's chances with David Hicks from JLT Thunder 545. They're in it. My crystal ball is on A&M. I think Oregon has really moved the needle with David Hicks. Miami's also in it. He's been to Norman several times, likes Todd Bates, likes Brent Venables, and their track record defensively. We'll see what happens. I don't expect them to make a decision anytime soon. Still sticking on A&M until someone tells me different. From Immunized, Kron MD, how does Oklahoma State capitalize on how well we do with recruiting classes outside the top 30? Am I crazy to think Oklahoma State could be better in the SEC if Gundy gets to add the recruiting pitch to a sustained success? I mean, what a great end to that season last year, beating Notre Dame in a New Year's Six bowl game. I mean, Oklahoma State, they scheme a great offense every year. They had one of the best defensive coordinators in college football last year. they're a developmental program. They're a program that they're identifying players that fit their scheme and putting them in positions to be successful. Maybe they get a handful of 4 or 5-star guys each cycle. But they're winning. They're out scheming people. I mean, this was a team. They had 3 guys drafted last year. The year prior 4. In 2019 they had 2. So I think for and that's good. But for Oklahoma State, they're going to continue to be a developmental program that just out schemes people and finds exciting players and puts them in the right places. How's TCU doing? Well, they got a chance at a top 25 recruiting class. They're doing well under this new staff. Sonny Dykes and company, they have 15 commits. They sit at number 28 nationally, and they're in on some guys moving forward. I know, and I'm going into my notes here. They'd love to get Jordan Sanford and Cam Cook by the end of the summer. Those are 2 more targets that they're going hard for. But they've had some big recruiting wins to date, and they got a chance to get a top 25 class. Steve, where does Jalen Hale end up? Well, I like where Texas stands. He's got Alabama and Georgia in his top 3, so you never count them out. But I think that Texas is in a really good position for Jalen Hale right now. I think he's one of the prospects that when you talk about the Arch Manning impact, he would have been one of the first guys I would have thought of as someone that would potentially follow Arch Manning to Austin. And Coach Marion does a great job recruiting. Coach Sark's offense is awesome. I like where Texas stands. Alabama and Georgia, you never sleep on them. What are your thoughts on the trajectory of the Texas Tech program based on recent recruiting from Mike Miller at Red Raiders for Life? Well, love it. I mean, they got a terrific class. They're sitting at number 16 in the country. If you were just using our rankings, they'd be number 14. So we're really high on this group, and I think you're going to see some of their commits be stock up. In our next recruiting update, Nick Fatigue is an offensive lineman that I know that our guys, Gabe Brooks and company, are super high on. Just an athletic, kind of a freak at the point of attack. Look, we talked about Oklahoma State and the success that they've had. Baylor, we talked about them a little bit in the show. Texas Tech, that's their ceiling too. They can compete for Big 12 crowns. They can play in New Year's 6 games, and they're going to do it by great identification in state. Player development, and you look at this staff, a lot of these guys helped to build Baylor up. Certainly Coach McGuire did. Certainly James Blanchard, who's off field, he's one of the best off field guys in college football. He did. And they're at Texas Tech now, and you look at this recruiting class that they have in the full 23 commits. A lot of them are very athletic. A lot of them have a lot of frame upside. They know what they're looking for, and they have great relationships with Texas high school football coaches. They want to win with in-state guys. And Texas Tech across the board, there's just so much excitement in all their sports right now. But I think that the ceiling of this program is one that can win the Big 12 and play in New Year's 6 bowls. What do I think of West Virginia's recruiting heading into a must-win year? Well, first of all, I think it's kind of ridiculous that it's a must-win year for Neil Brown and company. I think they've been a competitive football team that's played in some postseasons the last couple of years. They got the number 22 recruiting class in the country right now, so recruiting's been pretty exciting for them as it stands. Class jewel Rodney Gallagher picked West Virginia over Notre Dame and Penn State, among others. So they got some juice on the trail right now, and we'll see what they do on the field this fall. That breaking news we were waiting on, guys. Raul Popo Aguirre did commit to Miami, so Miami goes from number 10 to number 7 in the class rankings. You turn on Popo's film, he makes things happen in space, change of direction, tackling ability. He can thump. He covers downfield. So another good pickup for Miami. That's another one where Alabama had a hat on the table. We talked about them being in the right recruiting battles earlier in the show, but they go out there and land Raul Aguirre to a class that's up 3 spots to number 7, with plenty of more good news for them on the way before the season kicks off. That will do it for this episode of Wiltfong's Whip Around as well. Thanks again to Chris, Jason, and Trey, and all of you for tuning in. Please hit that like button on the YouTube channel. for the instant updates on when the latest 24/7 Sports video is dropping. Obviously, this will be cut up across the 24/7 Sports platforms as well. You guys have a great Tuesday night and a great Wednesday. We'll be back on Thursday for one more show before I go on vacation the following week. You guys take care.